Helping people is something that's been, on my heart for a very long time. Working with the kids on the specs is very rewarding, that I would probably cry every day because of a story of something that would have happened. We don't live in these regions. They know how to live off the land and what they're looking for. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. When I plan a project, I've got to consider everything. I've got to make sure we have water. We've got to make sure we have light and electricity for our power for our fridges and freezers and food. Going into a certain region can take months. The kids are desperate to read, and they want English reading books. Many of these kids don't say anything, so they just keep quiet and they just cope. Once they got the specs, they ended up doing more work, more regularly. And I said, I got a gift, and I kicked a soccer ball out the back of my Defender. About 30 kids just went completely erupted wild. Like, Bleh! About 70% goes into the project, which is the opposite to many of the other NGOs out there. If we go and do an art project or do books, for example, and we help out of 2,000 kids, we give proper good specs to 15 children. One of those kids can be the next president.
Anton, it's really good to have you back on video. I was just talking to you before we started this official video, how I discovered you in the first place, which was in an American Overlander magazine, which had an article, and I said, well, I need to do that myself. I need to join you. And then I started thinking, how can I make that happen? Yeah. And then I'm still wondering, by the way, but I really want to make that happen. And then I told Siamak once we got into conversations about founding Donista, which actually happened 2.5 weeks ago.
Yes.
So we're now a legit business. And then we had our first conversation. And I think actually you are the reason why Siamak decided to go for it. Because our conversation was so thrilling, so exciting, so motivational, that we decided to have a repeat. So thanks very much, Anton, for getting back onto the channel with us. So welcome back. And
Thank you.
Because none of our audience has any pre-knowledge apart from what we have on our website, donista.org, which of course is always worth a visit. Yes. Why don't we start with, you introducing yourself and 4x4 Out Far and what you're doing in Africa?
So, Anton, and I'm the founder of 4x4 Out Far, which is a foundation that supports local communities within the SADC region, which is the southern part of Africa. So between Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi. We pretty much go in and we help local communities with sustainable projects that are beneficial to them, not necessarily beneficial to the funder, for example. And what that means is that I have had people wanting to put funding in order to do a project, but the project might not necessarily work for the local community, which means that if you're going to spend the money, I want to make sure that what we're putting in is going to help them get further down the line so that they can still be sustainable themselves. And I've geared up for a few things. Number one is we do specs. We test kids for eye specs, which are key because in these regions they don't say or do anything, so they just cope with what they've been given, and they can't go into the urban areas in order to get their eyes tested. Cost to get there, time away from school, transport is another big one. So yeah, we've geared ourselves around trying to make sustainable projects in certain areas, and it's been going really, really well. Like super excited, and meeting you, Mike, was the same. It was very random, but there's actually a lot of synergy. You have a very big calling for Namibia, which is which is started off your African excitement. And through that, I think you realized what the capability and the scope and the options are in order for people to travel, but also support and help. We're now just waiting for Siamak to rock up on a boat or an aeroplane or a donkey and realize the same thing, you know, that this is
that's
what
one of the
much
original goals of Michael. He said in the beginning, you have to go out. I mean, you're just sitting in front of your computer on your laptop. You have to go out. But yeah,
he's right.
As you said it, so jump on a boat, jump on a plane, and get over.
He's very right. You know, there's certain people that are willing to come and join us, and then there's people that are going, well, here's the money, just let me know how it goes. And you know, and for me, I would rather someone join us, because that's how you connect with the local communities. That's how you really get to know the Kagosi, which is a chief in Botswana, and that's how you sit down and have a similar meal, and you just really recognize that. And this is something that I think I've mentioned to you before, is that just because they live in a rural community that don't have the amenities that what we would have down the road. I mean, I live in Cape Town, so I can go anywhere and pretty much get anything. Just because they don't have that doesn't mean that they are lesser off. In fact, many cases, myself and a bunch of friends are like, we would rather live out there. You know, we would rather have elephants come past us at 1 o'clock in the morning, and lions at a distance, not necessarily come past us at 1 in the morning, but it's all possible, you know, depending on where we go. And that's what makes it so much fun, is that accessibility and as a human, create some form of responsibility to help others. And it doesn't necessarily have to be where I go, but to help others.
Yeah. What struck my attention or caught my attention in the beginning was that you combine two things that I kind of or three things that I really like. One is, of course, Africa. Second is off-roading to a certain extent. And then combining that with something that actually helps the community. And last time, I think, or the first time we talked, I mentioned that I spent some time in the Bushman land in Namibia. And I saw how the population lived there at the same time in modern age, because actually the mobile phone connection is much better out there in the bush than in most parts of Germany, unfortunately. But, you know, I thought about, okay, how can we help that population to, on the one hand, preserve their lifestyle, and on the other hand, have them participate in modern society and modern economy. And that kind of caught my attention. So how do you actually do your projects? Maybe you can talk us through that. You decide you want to fit specs in a certain village, and then what happens?
So in most cases, we would work with someone funding the project, and they may have a certain area that's appealing to them. For example, you in the Kaoka land where the Himbas are. And we would then work closely with them and the local community leaders in order to, say, right, this is what we would like to do, because there's also the whole legal aspect behind this. So this is what we would like to do, get the approvals, all of that, and then go out and the overlanding camping side is for us a big benefit. We get to go out into the middle of nowhere and do amazing things, but we also have to have our head screwed on right. We don't live in these regions. We don't live with what they have to live with. I mean, if we're talking about the Himba people, they know how to live off the land and what they're looking for. They've been doing it for hundreds of years, and when I plan a project, I've got to consider everything. I've got to consider, like, is there some form of connectivity? If there's not, we've got to take a Garmin InReach Mini or something with us so that there's communication, if it's worst case scenario. We've got to make sure we have water. We've got to make sure we have lights and electricity for our power for our fridges and freezers and food. And so there's a huge aspect of time that goes into the planning of all of this. So going into a certain region can take months, of planning and logistics to go, okay, well, if we're going to go there, worst case scenario, what can happen? Are there floods? Are there fires? Is there, something else that we have to consider? And once all of that's out the way, Then we go in and we dig deep into what to expect in these areas when we're doing a project. You know, one of the big things that you and I spoke about in the beginning was reading books. And coincidentally, a while before you and I chatted, someone had come to me in a village called Soronga, and you'll actually find Soronga on a map now. And and they said the kids are desperate to read, and they want English reading books. And that really sunk into me, because I'm like, how the hell am I going to get books into this area? You know, this is not a place that you can just, you know, rock up and do it because of volume. So I then have a guy that I train with down the road that's a director of a big store, a bookstore, a wholesale bookstore. And he gave me a list of, okay, well, how many kids, how many schools, and they broke up everything. And so there's always a process and a way and a means to do all of this. And we are lucky. We have connectivity, we have accessibility, and it just takes time for the logistics to be planned. So doing a variety of different projects is very, it makes us very capable in order to go into the areas that are very challenging. I mean, some of the areas that I've been into, maybe 3% of people can actually drive into. It's tough. It's not easy. You can't just rock up without planning. And I've been around the whole of the Okavango twice, once when it's dry and once when it's wet. And after the one that's been wet, I now have a new vehicle. So I can tell you, it's not something to take lightly, I think.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I have so many questions, but Siamak, maybe you want to butt in as well. Just before you do, one more question. What do you do in real life, Anton? Because it sounds like, you know, it could be a life's occupation doing the fun stuff.
I'm trying to make it a life's occupation if we can get funding and enough. In real life, I actually work in the armored vehicle industry, armored cars. Vastly different, and it earns nicely, not the best, but nicely. But it's not necessarily really what I want to do. You know, there's helping people is something that's been, you know, on my heart for a very long time. So. Protection, which is probably why I'm in the armored vehicle industry and previously been in other military and defense suppliers, purely to help and protect people. This is just a different form, a completely different form. One is for the super rich, and the other one is just for people that don't have much but can get better.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, Michael. Can I? Great. Anton, for me, it's very exciting because we see now results and you tell what you do now. But what I like also as an entrepreneur, like when things start, it's just an idea. And how were the early days? I mean, how did you start? Was it organized? Did you have so much preparation in the first place, the first projects? Or because it might be more chaotic, I don't know, but how was the early days? What was the minimal thing you started with?
Do
you remember?
No, of course, jeepers. The first project I did was actually planned by someone else. And that was in the Ko'oka land, which is on the northwest side of Namibia. And you drive through the most beautiful places called Marienfluss and Sesfontein. And we went into a little village called Varmkwel, where they had a school. And we went into the first school and we screened kids for specs in the school. And the first project I was coping, but nowhere near where I am now. I think that first project made me go, whoa, hang on. If things go wrong, we have bigger problems. And in fact, the one guy's vehicle, he broke a bearing on his vehicle, on his wheel. And 2 weeks before, he threw the spare bearings away. So we get there,
of course,
and exactly. I was like, dude, you had one job, bro. Just keep your spares. That's all you had to do. And now, you know. Anyway, so we ended up driving for 3 days in total, through the night, through the day, to drive through this place, which is low range, to get where we needed to go. And electricity for the vehicles was one, and water was another. And I realized, whoa, I need a lot more water, and I need more electricity power, and I need better supply of the power, whether it's a solar panel during the day, whether it's while you're driving, you're pumping in the right amount of power from the alternator into the batteries. And so there was a number of factors that played a huge role. I would say back then I was 30% of what I am now. So right now I'm hitting really where I should be. But see, Mark, these things take time. It's a process and money. Someone's got to pay for it, and it comes out of my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the money, all the money that I get goes into projects. Sometimes because it's a job, I have to take a bit of a daily rate, but there's no regular monthly income on it. So if I say I need to change a solar panel to get a bigger one, or I need to get a bigger battery, that comes out of my pocket. So, and all of it goes in towards the vehicle, which is for projects, So after the first one, I ended up all of us didn't get along with the guy that organized it. So I was like, this is mad. I can do better than this. And I can do better than this guy. This is not the right way to do things. And I literally, I phoned the lady that we worked with at a company called Wilderness Safaris. And her name was Agnes. I still remember her to this day, the most wonderful lady. And I said, Agnes, I want to go into Botswana, and I want to do better than what we did now. And she said, you got to phone this guy. And his name's Kim Nixon. And he was the MD of Wilderness. And I phoned and I messaged him, and I waited 2 weeks, and I messaged him again, and I waited 2 weeks, and then and he said, listen, I'm going to give you the number of the guy. He'll set everything up. And I think 3 months later, I was in my vehicle and off we were going, and I was very thorough. And in fact, every trip you get more and more and more in detail and thorough, to the point that you get semi-saturated with, okay, I can't do more than what I am now. And I'm really excited because, like, where I am now, the capabilities are really high, which is great. I mean, it's really exciting.
Great. And if you look back, you might have done things different when you look back. Is there something where you say, oh, that was a big mistake and we should have thought about it, or that was something which could be avoidable? Or is it just learning curve and not avoidable?
So I have to be careful how I answer this. I don't want to say that that I know everything, because that's nowhere near the case.
Yeah.
There's factors that you can plan, and there's factors that you can't. The weather, you can't plan. So sure. you can plan, you can organize everything you want, and seem like everything matters in the sense of distance and time. So I can say, listen, we're going to go from this school or this region or this village to that village, and it's only 50 kilometers, for example. But 50 kilometers on a normal tar road can take me half an hour. But in some of these roads can take me up to 9 hours, which is very different. And that's on a good day when it's dry. When it's wet and the weather is in, then it's very, very different. So, it takes the time to plan and connect with the local community people to say, what would happen if this, and is there malaria issue? Is there is there no supply of water? Is there any of these things? And we try and eliminate as many of the issues as possible so we can plan and build our vehicles this side and not rely on anything that we need there. So, knowing a lot is great. Knowing everything, it's impossible. There's curveballs that you never would have thought of that just rock up and you're like, jeepers, I never saw that coming.
Great. Maybe we switch gears. I'm very interested in this specific project. I don't know, Michael, if it's fine for you, about this glasses, this spectacles for yes. children. If you can tell us a little bit more about why it's there, how does it help? I think you initially told us something, but maybe you have more to tell in detail about that specific project.
always got more to tell about it. So the whole kiddie spec thing is probably number one on my list, because, you know, African people are very proud people. They don't really say and do much because they don't want anyone to think that they need help or they're lesser, you know, of a, I can't say of a human, but lesser because of where they live. And many of these kids don't say anything, so they just keep quiet and they just cope. And the teachers know over time, they're like, oh, okay, this kid can't really see properly, so they move them around the class until they can see the board correctly, or they don't say anything. They just leave the kid to cope. I mean, I have endless stories of kids that once they got the specs, they ended up doing more work more regularly. They'd go home and then and they would sit there until it's dark doing schoolwork. And I had the one uncle come to me like the next day. He was like, why are you giving our kids so much work? I'm like, whoa, firstly, I'm not the teacher. Secondly, I got a thumbs up. Secondly, I said, have you asked her? Have you said anything to her? You know, like, just query. And it turns out she said to him, she said, because she hasn't seen her school books or the board like this ever, that she just was so excited to just do more and more and more and more. And that just left a bit of a huge gap in me, going, yo, we can do so much for these kids. And, you know, many of these farmlands are quite far away. So to get into a town where there's a decent optometrist is a challenge. That can take sometimes a 2-day trip just to get there. So that's obviously money to get there. It's somewhere to stay once you are there, to have a family member or something, you know, and there's a cost behind that. There's time away from their farm, which they're farming. The parents farm their own land in most of these communities, and it's time out of school for the kids. So, you know, they just cope with it. And then when we screen the kids, there's much excitement, you know, by the teachers, because we'll contact the community leaders in advance, and I'll say, listen, we're coming into town, we're coming to do this. Can you get the kids you know are a problem, bring them in first, you know? And there's generally, out of 100 kids, there's about 8 or 10 that need like proper checking. So we screen all the kids between 8 and 12, because anything over 12, the size of the specs, the size of the frames are bigger, because they're for adults, right? So you can imagine now you're taking an adult frame and you're putting it onto a kid. You've now got to adjust the length of it because of the ear. You've got to adjust the size. It's quite challenging. It's not very easy. So one of my best mates, he's been on the projects with me from a previous kit that we used, and he said, this is nonsense. I'm not doing this anymore with these guys. And he went and designed his own kit, and it's one of the most unique, in fact, the most unique kit in the world. And what we do is we actually carry like 250 frames, and we carry 250 or so different strengths for the left eye and 250 different strengths for the right eye. So there's hypothetically a minus 1.25 on the left, and there's also a minus 1.25 on the right. So the importance of this is that not everyone is the same strength on the left and right eye. See, Mike, you wear specs, you'll know this. I wear specs only in the last 2 years.
I have a difference of nearly a half.
Okay, so so imagine going into a store, into a optometrist, and they give you the same strength for one eye. I mean, it's counterproductive, and you can actually do damage to these kids. So I'm not a trained optometrist. The foundation is mine. The planning, the organizing, the logistics, everything is mine. But on the partnership, Carl runs and controls everything. So on the legal side, we work with the local community clinics. We get approval by government. We get approval by the school, the school government foundation side of it, and we go in. So it's all above board. and we plan day. We're going to be here today, there tomorrow, and we screen all the kids, everything between 8 and 12. If there's a kid slightly younger, we can help. If there's a kid slightly older, we can help. And the work that I've researched and done is any kid over the age of 14 or 16 that has not had specs has already lost nearly 50% of what they've needed to do within school. So these kids are super smart, they're bright, but because of eyesight, they've been hindered heavily. So by the time they get to college, they've either haven't got the money or they got the specs, and now they're trying to catch up.
You mean the catch up is very difficult after that point, yeah?
Correct. Because they, in these communities, there's still a lot of responsibility. They get home, if they have to do homework, they'll do homework. But that doesn't mean that they finish. They're still going to either fetch water, fetch firewood. Without the specs, you can imagine what it's like picking up wood and not seeing a scorpion. I've been in a village where we were on the one side of the village screening kids, and I could see the elephants and lions walking on the other side of the village, walking past. And they don't always see that. So you can imagine picking up firewood and fetching water, doing their daily chores, milking a goat or a cow. These things are very challenging. Without even for like me, I wear my specs most of the time unless things are fairly close, like the screen I have now, talking to you guys. But the moment I go downstairs, I got to put them on. Otherwise, I'm just seeing like semi blur. I can cope because I've put coping mechanisms in as an adult to deal with these things. These kids can't. So there's a number of factors. So for me, the kids are key. And in fact, 2 years ago, I was up in an area called Erecha. You won't even find it on a map. Eretshe, Erecha. Good luck finding it. And I put up a solar kit Wi-Fi so that the kids can go and download books, do their homework, research projects, like my daughter can, Michael, your daughter can, and you coming, Siamak, sorry, your turn's coming where they shout at you and they moan at you and they throw things at you, and but when there's no internet, it's even worse. So I installed this Wi-Fi kit and we put it in the main area of the village so that anyone within the area would be able to log on at no cost to download and do whatever it is that they need to do. So working with the kids on the specs has been gold, and it's very rewarding. That I would probably cry every day because of a story of something that would have happened every day. I mean, it's just amazing. We've screened kids that have had one boy that had or has mild autism, and one kid that's been completely blind in one eye, didn't tell anyone. There's so many different stories in different regions that we've been between Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Kenya. It's amazing. And once you've done it once, you just go like, no ways, man. We need to do more. But obviously it boils down to funding, which is why you guys are amazing and doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that actually it brought to light a new aspect that I hadn't considered as much. I was always thinking about, allowing kids to read, to learn, to participate. But actually what you stressed in what you said is it sometimes means survival or not as well, because the world out there is much more dangerous than we anticipate probably in Western Europe. Scorpions, snakes, what have you, or even an elephant. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I think you have some interesting side projects there as well.
I'm busy doing a series at the moment. I was in the Okavango in November, doing a series on showing people where or how all of these foundations are intertwined and why and how they became and why they're keen to work with me and vice versa. So the elephant fences, and there's another one called claws, which protects the local community livestock, cattle, goats, sheep, whichever is around, from lions and hyenas and things like that. And And what they do is you have these farmlands that are, obviously in the middle of nowhere. And the farmlands are then raided by the elephants for the crops. So they grow corn and fruits and veggies and whatever it is that they can. And then the elephants would come through at night and completely destroy and eat the crops. And what they started doing is putting up these, what they call the elephant fences, which are electric fences, like a normal electric fence that you have around, well, maybe not you, but in South Africa, we have these electric fences. And they basically just, when the elephant comes close by, it gives them when they touch the fence, it gives them a bit of a shock, a bit of a wake-up call going, oh, you can't come here. And then the elephants, they just, run off back into the bush. So it doesn't harm the elephant. One of the main things behind the elephant fences is that the cost in order to replenish or replace what's been lost is thousands of dollars. And that is time. They got to replace the crops. They got to grow it. So that takes time. They got to buy food in the meantime. That's money. And it could be 6 months before they see, any decent yield out of their own crops. So the elephant fencing is key. Coincidentally, the area that we go, the kids go onto what's called as the Elephant Express, which is just a normal van, like a VW or a Hi-Ace Toyota van, and they cart the kids between the villages to the school. Because the kids have been stompled on in the past by walking to school. These distances are not, they far. I met kids, yes, and I tell you, I'll be honest, I cried. I met these kids that walked 8 kilometers a day. Now, just imagine saying to your kids, right, you're walking from now on, you're walking 8 kilometers a day to go to school. Can you imagine the outcry you would have by the community? Like, what are you doing, sending your kid walking to school? But out there, this is normal. There's nothing major different. The challenge is you've got big wildlife, and you've got animals that'll eat you and animals that'll just stomple on you and then just move on. Because of the congestion of animals, then the elephant corridors. So these amazing people have put together the Eco Express, and they pick up the kids and they drive between the school and their home. And it's so good. It's so cool. It just really is a massive deal for the safety, for parents. The parents are going, this is great. My kids are protected. They're going to school, they're learning. And the kids are going, I'm getting to school quicker. I don't have to get up and start walking in the dark when it's winter. These are things that aren't really spoken about very often outside of, the African communities.
What you explained now, does that apply to all the countries you're working in? You mentioned Zimbabwe, Malawi, Botswana, Namibia. Are they the same, or are there really differences as well? Something that is needed in, let's say, in Zimbabwe is not needed anymore in Botswana. How are these countries different, and therefore the challenges you're facing?
So yeah, of course, every country is different, but not that far off from each other. So in Malawi, out of the urban areas, they are pretty much the same. People have tried to put schools in a more convenient place, but then obviously there's money involved. So in the rural areas, even in South Africa, in the Northern Cape and in outside of the main city and town areas, the kids are still known to walk to school. We don't have the big issues, for example, like the elephants and the lions and whatever, having problems with them, but we do. They still need to walk. They need to have food. Nutrition is another one. They leave early. They haven't eaten breakfast. They get to school sluggish. So many of the schools cater for the kids to have a good breakfast so they can have a good day, all of these regions. I've been, and I need to finish it. I've been asked to do a project in Angola, and I said, just tell me where it is. And they sent me the name, and I couldn't find it on the map anywhere. And I'm pretty resourceful, couldn't find it. I was like, all right, do me a favor, send me a pin, like just a WhatsApp pin drop. So they sent me a WhatsApp pin drop. And I phoned him and I said, you're lying to me. You just went like, put it anywhere and you sent it. He goes, no, that's where it is. I'm like, dude, there's nothing there. He goes, no, there's a village. I'm like, that's, I started stuttering. I was like, what, firstly, how are we going to get there? Now, talking about different challenges in that area, we would have to be driven in by a foundation, the Halo Trust, with the people that we were going to work with, because of the mines, the ground mines from the Angolan war and the Russian mines that were put in the ground. Now you've got a whole different problem. Now you got kids losing legs. It's like it's wild, like, and I mean wild in every sense of the term. So I think they told me there's something like 250,000 mines not accounted for. So I'm going, I'd love to take my vehicle. I'd love to, but they're going, no, we're not going to let you just drive anywhere along there, because you take the wrong road. That's it, So the challenges are there. The issues differ slightly. It's the same in Kenya. In fact, most of the African countries, except for, I'd say, the northern bordering of the continent, your Middle Eastern countries. I haven't been to those for this yet, so I don't know exactly, but I would say everywhere. I mean, Somalia, you've got the same problem. Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, all of those places, Congo, Republic of Congo, all the way down. It's very similar issues. Very similar issues.
I have a question around all of your visibility in the internet, because also Donista is trying to help there in that specific, let's say, perspective or trajectory to gain more visibility to projects like yours or non-profit organizations. How do you deal with the internet? I mean, I saw you have a YouTube channel, you also have a podcast format, you have shorts, but how does it, what is your strategy there? And does it really help? Is it painful as it is for most people who don't get recognition? And how does it help to get attention? And what strategies didn't work in the past, or what are you planning maybe?
So it's very challenging, Siamak, because on a number of levels, I do everything pretty much myself. So I have a photographer that is a really good guy, and he knows what he's doing. So we would plan stories and things like that. So I would then, when I do the editing on the videos, I would take the content that I've worked with him on, and then I would make a YouTube or Instagram and whatever, but timing is it's impossible for me to do everything all the time. The main challenges are the algorithms. The algorithms favor what's happening in Europe, what's happening in North America, compared to the stuff that I would do here. It's being put in front of the main guys, the guys, like a random article in a magazine in North America that Michael ended up reading. That's the luck of what I do. So I focus on YouTube, and I try and put videos up regularly, but it's not always easy, because the cost of projects is, just fuel alone is like 1,100 euros, just fuel, for me to go up there and back. And that's not earning any money, any salary. And then I still got to pay for my photographer to come. So it's very challenging trying to find the companies or an established family or someone that is willing to connect on a one-on-one. Emailing the Bill Gates, information@billgates.com it's pointless, absolutely pointless. And I actually ended up finding out that they're like an old boys club. all those big foundations they just keep focusing on the same people all the time, very seldom, unless there's like a direct intro. So finding a company that's willing to connect one-on-one, or a established family or something like that that's willing to interact is key, but it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I went through about 15 months of no work within the bush whatsoever, purely because it was just it was impossible to try and find someone that's willing to connect, unless there's a direct intro. But I think one of the biggest issues are the algorithms. And as we know, buying likes and buying followers is just it's not realistic. It just hurts you even more. So I just keep plugging at it, keep putting up what I can when I can. I've got a really nice series that's out at the moment on from November last year, and I'm just hoping that hits the right channels and the right viewers, just to follow, share, like the whole vibe. But it's very, very difficult. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but it is something which might have worked for other people. By accident, you get some fame, you get some, because I myself was recognizing some of this people who really go out and somehow they pop up in Instagram, or somehow they popped up on YouTube, and then you follow the rabbit hole, and then you get more information from them. So I would keep doing it, but as I said, also our mission is to help on those side by getting attraction to the smaller projects. So that's it's challenging, I think, but on the other side, I think it's unavoidable, what you do. And you have to do it. Another thing I saw is it might be another branch is you also deal with tourism. Is this correct? So you're bringing out people there, or is it something which is not far established? What is the idea there?
So I had come up with an idea that if a funder wanted to put money in to do a project, come with us, come and join us. I'll organize a vehicle. You need to be able to rough it a little bit. There's no proper showers, there's no proper toilets and things like that. But it really is. It's really great to have the people that are funding it, because number one, you will never ever forget that experience ever. You will also never get that experience anywhere else. So, I was going, you know what? We can hire a good 4x4 vehicle. We pick you up from the airport. We get the food and whatever drinks you want, and you join us in convoy, and we go and do the project together as a little community driving along, and you get to see firsthand who we are, that we're legit, that we're hands-on. You're in safe hands, and we work with good community leaders, so that if we do need anything, we can get access to it. Maybe not immediately, but we can get access to it. And that, I think, is quite, it's important, because down the line, the Michaels or the CMX of the world that would come along will go back to their friends and go, you know what, this is like the most amazing experience. And to most of these companies and people, it's not that expensive, considering what they get back within the footage and the content and things like that. And it just dawned on me, like, don't only give the content, let the people come and hang out and have those experiences. And if they want afterwards to stay at a big fancy safari lodge, no problem. We can, you can go there, then you can go and have your hot shower looking at elephants, whatever it is that you want to do. So it's just opening up the scope of what the possibilities are.
Yeah, great. I mean, it makes totally sense to go on also on this mouth to mouth and personal experience, and people bringing back experience. I think that's even more personal than maybe watching a YouTube video. So it's the real thing. I love that idea, even if it's maybe difficult to do it. But I feel more connected to that idea, and I'm really thinking about, hey, doing it. It's stuff. I like that idea to just connect it, because it's not only my imagination is not only watching you doing things, but basically helping, executing also with you. So being a helping hand in this project, which is another layer, let's say another level of participation, not just watching, but really be able to be part of the solution. Great.
Yep. You know, I'm not the guy to just take money, for example, and go and do a project. I want people to come and interact and join. And you know, I had a chat to, this was someone quite a while ago. I can't remember who it was, and we were talking about this, and I was going, you know, what did you do for your birthday 3 years ago? And he goes, Jeepers, I don't remember. I said, well, what's the oldest birthday that you do remember? And he goes, I was 7 years old and we went camping. He didn't even think about it. He just knew immediately. He didn't know what he did 3 years ago, but he remembered what he did when he was 7 camping. I mean, that says something. And I'm going, so if you come on something like this with us, you have the most out of this world amazing experience. You're helping people. You're doing a lot with the community. You're hanging out with, I like to think myself as cool. My daughter might argue that. But it's, you know, you'll go home and you're going to go, flip, man. Like, I was sitting there having a cup of tea and this elephant walked past. And I froze. But it was the most amazing thing that I'll never forget. And that's what we want.
So what's your next project that you're kind of preparing or collecting money for in the finance phase of the project? What's next?
All of them.
The answer is yes.
Yes, all of them. So I've still got to drive Michael to do the books. I'm not going to lie. I think that is amazing because it's incredibly sustainable, number one. The books will stay at the school in the community. They don't go missing. There's no, you know, so the kids will learn. They can, I think to me that is gold. I am supposed to be leaving on the 2nd or 3rd of April to go back into the Okavango and hand out some, to do some more of the human wildlife conflict. And take some content for the local big safari companies, and do the soccer balls. I've realized the soccer balls are key, and thanks to you guys and some of your donations from your clients, that actually excites me a lot. I never realized up until the last project in November. I never realized what a massive impact the soccer balls made. It was crazy. I mean, after the first soccer ball, I was like, what's going on here? Like, these kids on a Friday afternoon, they waited for us to get there, and we finished the chat and finished everything we wanted, you know, talking to them, getting and doing whatever it was. And I said, I got a gift, and I kicked a soccer ball out the back of my Defender, and and I'm not joking, about 30 kids just went completely erupted wild. Like, and then about 10 minutes later, I heard the mothers screaming, you know, like, come home, you got stuff to do. And they're yelling at the kids, and the kids are going woof that way. And I'm going, yes, I'm going to get flipping shot by a parent here because the kids have chores and they're like going anywhere other than home because they're playing soccer. I was like, this is crazy. And I had a chat to the lady that I was working with at the time, and she said to me, she said she's got quite a drive to do netball and soccer balls. So netball for the kids, for the girls, and soccer balls. You know, they don't have proper pitches like, you know, like these big fancy ones, but these kids don't care. And what really got me going was they were playing in their socks, like One Oak had one shoe on. He was trying to take his both shoes off, but the kids were having all the fun. So he's like So he's running with one shoe and sock on and the other foot with nothing. I was like, yes, dude, your mother's going to completely destroy you. You're going to have all the fun now. You're going to go home and get a hiding.
Yeah.
So the whole soccer ball thing has just been, it's been a big deal.
Yeah.
And that is something that I want to try and harness and focus on, a little bit more. So thanks to your donation, I can buy a good bunch, and I just need a plan where it's going to go. The thing is, sorry, Mike, the whole thing is that the cost of the soccer ball is this much, but the cost of fuel to get there is like here. So that's the way off I'm trying to go. If I can I'm trying to actually at the moment, this week and next week, focusing on trying to get the funding, a little bit of funding in for fuel.
Yeah, I think it two aspects. I mean, it highlights kind of the work hard, play hard idea and probably play hard is coming, is on the back seat or back burner for most of those kids, because after school they have to support their families, work on the farm and do stuff. So, that's another aspect maybe where sort of we don't think about enough and can help on the other. And the second point I wanted to stress, and because we talked about funding a project in more detail way back, we're talking about huge distances. So one way is a couple of thousand of kilometers, and going from one school to the next is further than going from, Hamburg to Berlin, for example, and on roads that are non-existent. So I think there's an underappreciation really of the total cost of the project that goes far beyond what we would consider normal here in Europe, where you fund something, people are on site, they basically, have no logistics costs, they don't have to take off from work. But what you're doing is basically pausing your life, then you go on a trip, it takes probably at least 2 weeks, and you have huge outlays. Even if the car doesn't break down, there's much more involved.
That's on a good trip.
Yeah. So I think I just wanted to stress that for our users, that why are these projects so expensive compared to stuff that looks similar out here? Yeah. And so if you're saving, and maybe that's something we could try and look into for our platform, is, if there are specific goals, maybe we can help you reach those goals. There are platforms that do that already, but that would be great. If we could say, okay, let's try and support this one project that you have in the making, and then we can enhance our capabilities there and harness the community as is.
Yeah, just to give you an idea why the costs are what they are, and I can mention what the costs are on here if you want, I will justify it first before I give you the cost if you want. But it's to go into Maun, for example, which is one of the, it's not a town, I'd call it probably a city in Botswana, is 2 days of driving at about 12 hours a day, 2 solid days. And there we can restock, refill fuel, do all of that other type of stuff. Then we still need to drive another 8 hours or so around to the other side of the Okavango into the Panhandle. That's another 8 hours on roads that are out of this world bad. In fact, on the first project we did in this area, the one guy lost a filling in his that's how bad the road is. Yeah. So, and that's just to get to our final destination. Then we take like a day off because we've been driving solid heavily, and then we start on pretty much the Monday morning. So it's the cost of maintenance and wear and tear on the fuel, on the vehicle, the cost of the fuel. Depending on the project, there's a daily rate for the people coming because they've taken time out of their normal day to come and do this. So, they earn a daily rate into this, which is not very high, but it's enough to just, bring in what they would have lost on their normal salary. And then you're right, 10 days to 2 weeks in order to do one of the projects, depending on what it is, So those costs are fairly high. What we maybe don't focus on enough, or we should try and emphasize a lot more on, is the impact that it gives. Is that if we go and do an art project or do books, for example, and we help out of 2,000 kids, we give proper good specs to 15 children. One of those kids can be the next president, can be the next, a senior in their area, in their region, and be able to study something more or get a bursary or something like that, and that's what we're striving for. Many of the kids aren't given chances like that because of where they are. If you in Gaborone, for example, or in Windhoek, those kids get given a lot more amenities and accessibility to government everything compared to being in the village. So it's the cost of a working family on a farm earning an income compared to someone working within an office in a city. That's vastly different, and that's why we go and focus on those kids in those areas, is because of the complete massive difference between the two, and that costs money. The majority of the funding we get, hypothetically, if out of 100% of the funding that we get, Michael, is about 70% goes into the project, which is the opposite to many of the other NGOs out there. Many of the other NGOs are like 20% goes into the project. That's what happened in Haiti when the earthquake happened. The NGOs managed to get there, build all sorts of stuff, but then there was no more money left to actually help the local people. So 80% was cost of the NGO, whereas we're the complete opposite.
Yeah, that's actually, as it happens, one of the most important criteria for us, which charities to choose or offer to our users, is efficiency of applying money. Talking about money, one topic Siamak and the team and I have been debating in the last couple of weeks is, what is the impact of the change in development aid? The changes that are happening in the US, but probably are going to happen in Europe as well. Did you already experience or hear about that impact, and what do you expect, and what does it mean? What do we have to do? What can we do to help, to substitute to a certain extent, maybe?
So much of what's happened because of the Western politics has directly affected really good friends of mine that work for good, proper foundations. I also know a bunch of people in USAID that have obviously been affected, and it's unfortunate that the big issue here is just volume. South Africa received vials for AIDS and HIV. That's all now stopped. So on the volume side, it's going to be a very big problem. And I believe there are going to be further outbreaks and things going wrong because of not getting medications and all that other type of stuff. So for me, I'm on a much smaller scale. I do think, though, and I think we're going to start seeing a change now where the big foundations, whether it's the banks, all of that type of thing that's not involved in politics, are going to start putting funding in to some of these organizations. You got big organizations and NGOs that are in Mozambique, they're in Malawi, they're in Zambia, all these countries, and they're going to start finding their way between a funder and a need, and I'm hoping I fall into that, but I think that's what's going to happen. It hasn't directly affected me yet because I don't have a consistent income from one of those, but I think it's coming. I think there's going to be more challenges down the line.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And talking about your income, I saw that you also accept donations. What is the primary way, except maybe Donista in the near future, to help you directly? What is it?
So there is PayPal. PayPal is probably the most reliable and simple. I do have a foreign bank account, so that's also another option, but that would need a bit of interaction. I believe that PayPal would be the way to go, purely because it's you know, you don't want to put up something that's local and not recognized overseas. You know, it just looks a little bit weird and a little bit dodgy, and no one wants that. You know, you want to show that there's consistency all the way around. So PayPal would probably be the number one way to do it. There are other ways that I need to look into, but I think I'm more reliant on PayPal because it works in South Africa, that I can use it, and people trust it overseas.
Yeah, and Patreon is also something you offer? Or?
Yeah, I do offer Patreon. To be honest, because I have because I'm the only guy that does everything, to update it all the time. It is there. There is an option, I think, of a buy me a coffee, put in 20 euros, make it 200 euros, or here's put in your own amount, you know. To be honest, I actually haven't even been onto that in a while. And it is something that might be very usable. In fact, going forward, I should get onto that.
Yeah, and maybe we can discuss, because we are also in our early stages, and maybe also in future some exclusive content might be interesting. I see that a lot of people have like a website where there is a certain area for people who donated who get more exclusive content or more early content or some stuff.
They get access.
Might be interesting. Yeah.
I completely agree with you.
Great, Anton. I mean, people should know that this is our second time we meet. I mean, we didn't mention it in the beginning, but basically this time I even got more insights. It's really great to see what you do, and I don't feel we're so much away from our mission to improve things. Us being a little bit more indirect, and you being very direct. But it is adding on. It is incremental, I think. I mean, it needs both. It needs platforms. It needs internet access and internet spread. But it needs also people like you. I really in Germany, I would say I take my hat in front of you, which means I'm really glad that people like you just do it. Just do what they do, and we do what we do. It's great. Great, Anton. I
do appreciate it. And, you know, it's little things like this that make a huge difference. Even for me, it just puts an extra step in my walk because, you know, you guys, you're not far off from me. You've taken a big step in starting your own thing doing this. I took a big step in starting what I was doing. So it's just different platforms. It's not far off from what we're doing together, you know. So I'm just grateful to be able to share the stories, connect with you guys. And I know that we're going to make it work between us. I know it is, and it's not going to be like a rocket science story either. You guys are smart. It's networking, and this is what we want to do: is just network and share. Because word of mouth is the only way to go. It's, you know, social media these days. I don't really trust much of it. So if I get a word of mouth on something, I'm not going to question it. I'm going to go say, okay, I know that this is legit. And that's exactly what you guys are bringing to the table. And I really appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you very much. It reminds me very much of what one of our other interviewees told us. He says, doing good makes you feel good. And I think that's why we do most of what we do. You know, it just is so rewarding, and even, you know, just talking to you is so inspirational. So Anton, thank you very, very much for your time and all the effort you put into what you're doing, and looking forward to hearing more stories and talking to you again very soon.
There's plenty.
Cool.
Great, Anton, thank you.
So Michael, thank you. You guys are a bunch of legends. Thank you.